Hello, Dr. Andrea McSwain. Let me plug this in. Okay, today we are going to talk about the gut and the brain and how they are related. So, this is just changing the paradigm in medicine in some ways, and it's also, ironically, taking us back to ancient wisdom. So, the gut health is paramount to the way the brain works. And probably the best way to understand that is because most of what we take in for nutrients is going to go through the gut to be processed. And so we have to kind of remember that, medicine and its technology and its advancements have really kind of come through quite profoundly in the last 15 to 20 years, really since we understood genetic profiling in the body and really started to understand the gut. So first, ancient wisdom tells us, go with your gut. There's an expression in the Middle East in Farsi, which is jigareto bohorim, which means, I love you so much that I want to eat your liver, because the liver is the place of compassion. We talk about other organs as well and how important they are. We give them like an emotion, but in the Middle Eastern culture, they give the liver an emotion, which is kind of fun. Anyway, the reason I want to bring you back to that is ancient wisdom, right? I feel it in my gut, or, that doesn't seem right in my gut, or my gut got tight around that person, or something to that effect. Well, that's very real, because the gut has a tremendous amount of nerve supply. It is processing different hormones and transmitters, and is responsible for absorbing those, and then the blood supply distributes those to the other organs, including the brain. So it just kind of came into kind of modern day medicine, or medicine, from the Heizo, just talking about, how medicine in the last 150 years started really dividing up the different body parts, and thus came all these specialists like the GI doctor, right? The general surgeon, the neurologist, the neurosurgeon. And we started saying like, oh, if you have a brain problem, go here. If you have a gut problem, go here. And really recognizing that the body is one unit, and that one unit has tremendous interplay between the different systems, but they're still all connected. And so we learned words like neurotransmitters, right? So if you know that word, it's a nerve transmission related to the brain. But actually, we find that you get that in foods like serotonin and tryptophan and dopamine. These are all neurotransmitter names, but we get those in our foods. And our body converts from our food to those specific nerve transmitters, and that happens in our brain. And so I want to talk to you about a few examples and, clarify a little bit more of this topic. And if you have any questions about the gut-brain connection, then jump right in. So let's see here. Yes. So one, we have to recognize that these pathways exist, and we have to recognize the profound impact of what's happening in the gut is actually impacting throughout the whole rest of the body. Second, we often eat neurotransmitters as food, as I mentioned. And then, our brain has different cranial nerves, which are the nerves that come directly from the cranium. They don't come from the spinal column. And one of them is the vagus nerve. It's called the motor, but it actually travels from the base of the skull and the base of the brain all the way down this side into the gut. And so we have a cranial nerve that directly regulates from the brain to the gut what's happening. So those are some very good examples of gut-brain connection. And then we're starting to recognize all the bacteria and its role that it plays. So the gut bacteria and the gut microbiome, which is kind of all the bacteria that are living in the gut, and how we live in a symbiotic relationship with those bacteria. We need them to convert many of our foods into different transmitters throughout our body. So we rely on the bacteria in our gut. We also rely on the immune system in our gut. And so for an example, with autoimmune disorders, when we do not have the right lining, or the lining has been affected by inflammation, and therefore it is not protecting us as a barrier, then we are actually getting food particles in before they've been processed, and that can trigger the immune system, causing autoimmune disorders, which can have brain symptoms. Another example that we've recently been talking about, and quite a bit in my practice, is Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's very much has a gastrointestinal problem, because Alzheimer's has some dysregulation in the neurotransmitters, and that comes a lot from absorption issues in the gut, and what's happening in the gut microbiome. So that Alzheimer's has a lot to do with what's happening in the gut. And that means you can improve with Alzheimer's by understanding what's happening in the gut and working on how to improve the gut microbiome, which is very possible. And then another example is anxiety. So how is what we're eating and what we're absorbing through the body, how is that getting up to the brain, so that those different hormones and transmitters can actually communicate then throughout the rest of the body. And I also keep thinking about diabetes type 2, which, it's very interesting because we have these types of diabetes. So we're actually looking also at type 3 diabetes, which is kind of going in and out of as a controversial state in medicine. But really, that type 3 diabetes is this diabetes of the brain. So it's a diabetes or a endocrine blood sugar stress hormone that's actually affecting cognition. So diabetes type 3, I don't think it's really really been completely defined. But if you're starting to hear about type 3 diabetes, then just start thinking about what are the underlying causes: stress, hormone problems, blood sugar dysregulation, and then how that's impacting how we think. So kind of goes with another adage of ancient wisdom, which is you are what you eat, right? And if you've heard you are what you eat, you can write in, yeah, I've heard that. But you are what you eat, but actually you are what you absorb. Because what we've realized as we've been able to apply modern technology to medicine is that actually our absorption rates in our intestinal tract go down. So our ability to absorb goes down with our chronologic or metabolic aging process. And so as we age, hi Dave, thanks for joining. So as we age, our organs actually absorb less. So it's not so much you are what you eat, but you are what you absorb. And so someone my age, who's 41, can expect to absorb somewhere around 60% in general, but someone around 70 or 80 is looking at 30 to 40% absorption. And so when we look at things like B12, which we know from research that B12 and folate, SAMe, if you've heard that, or any kind of methylation improvement helps with depression. Hi, Dave. And so there's actually a really important research study in the American Journal of Psychology, yes. And no, the American Journal of Psychiatric Medicine. And what they're saying is folate, so ingesting folate is actually better at helping depression than most of the antidepressant medicines. And it goes on to say that antidepressant medicines like SSRIs, so Lexapro and sertraline and a lot of Prozac, these are only 34% effective or 33% effective in actually treating or resolving symptoms of depression. However, folate is 94% effective. So B12, folate, your B vitamins are actually more effective in complex depression situations than antidepressant medications. And so perfect example of the gut-brain connection. But to expand upon that, B12 is not absorbed in people who take omeprazole because it requires the bacteria. So we all know how much B12 helps us with energy and mood. And when we don't have some of the bacteria that we need to do that conversion, because that's what happens, a lot of times the bacteria does a conversion for us, then we don't actually have that available. So that's an example of omeprazole and many other medications that are synthetic and are very severe in our body in affecting the chemical processes. They often kill off the bacteria, and then those bacteria, their symbiotic job is to provide us with a breakdown of what we need from food so that we can absorb it in its correct form and have the body, including the brain, use it correctly. So, even just looking at B12, if you are taking omeprazole or have taken omeprazole, then the chances of you even having B12 available to you through your food is very slight. And that can very much affect your mood, energy, and how your body processes its kind of regular activities. There's a bunch of drug muggers, and Susie Cohen is a pharmacist. She has a great book called Drug Muggers. We have it in the office, and I'm happy to bust it out when you're here. You can check it out and see what medications you have been on or are currently on and what those drugs are stealing from your system. Seizure medications are notorious for stealing your folates. And, we look at some of those things too, as that impacts our overall health and well-being, including our brain and our cognition. So kind of a beginning introduction to the brain-gut connection. And if you have any questions, just message us or contact us. So if you're looking into some great books to read, anything by Susie Cohen, for sure, no doubt. She's a fantastic author. Drug Muggers is great. Diabetes Without Drugs is a great book. And then she also has an email listserv she sends out to 4 million people every week. So good for her. And she's giving great information. And then also Dale Bredesen, Dr. Dale Bredesen, The End of Alzheimer's, which is just a great way to understand how the brain functions and how that's affected by everything we do. So have a beautiful night. And we are starting the breathing challenge, We're starting the breathing class tomorrow. So if you're a member, that's included in your membership. It's in your Facebook group. And I'll see you at 10:30 in the morning. And then if you are, I think it's 10:30, whatever it says in the email. And then if you are paying, you're welcome to do that too for our breathing class. So talk to you soon. Have a great night.